Hey, this is Carlo of 4GQ TV here. I have my co-host Paul, also known in the community as Cerebral Paul, and I have an amazing actor with us today, Corin. Hopefully, I say your last name right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Nemec.
That's perfect.
All right. Yes, I got it right on the first try. So I was looking at your IMDb, and growing up, I remember Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I loved shows like that, man. Like I was big into shows like that. They were fun, they were funny, they were energetic, and I had no idea. So I'm blown away the fact that you were in that, and I wish we would have saw more come out of that because it was so cool. It was awesome.
Yeah, it deserved to have another couple of seasons, I think. But the 3 seasons that we did shoot, the 78 episodes, I think they do encapsulate a period in time, in the 90s on television and all of that, with just such a specific shooting style and wardrobe style and just the way that the colors that were used and everything. I really do think it's one of those shows that just it's a great representation of the early 90s.
Absolutely, and it's awesome that you got to be a piece of that in history, because it was a very unique time coming from the late '80s to the early '90s, and just the designs everywhere that those pop colors, the unique styles. I'm blown away by it all. So awesome work, Corin.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into acting?
Well, I started acting when I was about 12 years old, 11, 12 years old in a acting class called Center Stage LA in Los Angeles. An artistic director named Kevin McDermott was headed that. And he used a lot of improvisation. It was an under 18. I would think the age range was about 10 years old to 17-ish. And used a lot of improv to help the actors, the young actors, loosen up and not be so stressed about the dialogue and memorizing lines and being so specific. And not to say that we didn't have to memorize the lines verbatim. That's obviously a necessity to be able to do, but to be able to detach ourselves from the dialogue in order to be the character or to express what the character is trying to get across. For instance, we would memorize and rehearse a scene, whether it be a comedic scene or dramatic scene or whatever. And instead of us rehearsing the scene as scripted, he would just tell us to now improv the scene, the needs and wants of the characters, the beginning, middle, and end. If you happen to say some of the dialogue, fine. You don't have to stick to it, this, that, the other, but just find your way to the end of this as the character. And that's what we would do. And then we would go back and do the scene with the dialogue verbatim. And the effect that had to be able to experience the organic responses that you feel like you should have, that maybe not be in the script, that may not be in the words, really opened us up to be able to, I think, create characters that were very believable.
Okay, so I have a question about that then. Let's go back to again Parker Lewis. A lot of that is really so. Was a lot of that kind of not necessarily ad lib, but you were able to create that yourself, or was that verbatim?
No, the Parker Lewis Can't Lose, man. That was like doing Shakespeare. We were not allowed to change a syllable. I am
Wow.
serious. They were absolutely strict as you can possibly imagine, that we said everything exactly as scripted. It got to the point, I mean, first season, there was times when we would try
Yeah.
to, no, can I, and nope, nope, nope. And
Nope.
yeah, by like the third or fourth episode, the writing was on the wall. You know what I mean? There
Yeah.
is none of that is allowed. Our improvisation
Yeah.
is only in the reactions and what happens between the dialogue. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
again, all of that training that I had in not having to rely on the dialogue,
Right.
to get my point across, helped me to be able to be right on page, say everything
Yeah.
exactly as scripted, and still feel really loose enough that you don't know whether that's the case or not, hopefully.
You know what's cool about that then? It means the writers really did a heck of a job giving you guys the perfect dialogue and the perfect, because it looks like it could have been, a little bit of a cheeky, kind of play, it plays well. It really does. I mean, and that says a lot about the writing and about your guys' acting abilities to be able to do that with what they were writing.
Yeah,
So
totally.
and then I also look. I mean, you started off strong. I mean, you were in Tucker, the Man and His Machine,
Yeah,
which is a
so yeah,
great
so
movie. If you've
that was
never
the first
watched it,
job. Yeah, I kind of got lost track of what we were talking about there. But basically, I got into that acting class, and it was a very reputable class. And we did a showcase early on in my studies there. I'd only been studying there maybe about 6 or 8 months, and we did a showcase for agents and managers. And it just happened to be, a young actors workshop that agents and managers knew there was really good talent coming out of. And so the showcases were packed, and they were packed not just with family members and stuff like that. They were packed with agents, managers, and casting directors, and it was really something else. I was pretty blown away by it, and a lot of other young actors have come out of that class as well over the many years that he taught. And I signed with with an agency within 2 weeks of that showcase, and started auditioning right away. I got the first audition I went on was for a Suzuki motorcycle commercial that was casted by Paul Ventura, who put me in a number of commercials as well. And he may have even, I don't know if he cast me in Sidekicks or not, but he cast me in a number of commercials. But so I got my first job, the first audition I went on, and I thought that was, that was really something that gave me an incredible amount of motivation and energy and confidence, because what I didn't realize until later is that this industry is so filled. It's 99% rejection. You know what I mean? It really is. It's 99% rejection on an artistic level and on a business level when it comes to the auditioning process and all of that and everything. It's if you're lucky, it's 96, 97% rejection. And you're still getting 2 or 3% of the jobs that you're auditioning for. If you're getting 1% of the jobs that you're auditioning for, you're a working actor. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So it's a really tough business, and getting a start like that, it helped me to feel like I could get every job I walked into the room and auditioned for. So I had a level of confidence because I didn't get rejected the first time out. I didn't have to suffer that, what did I do wrong? Maybe I'm
Yeah.
not right for this. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this just isn't right for me, that you have to go through as an artist, and as in any industry, really. And then shortly after that, I landed the role of Tucker, and playing Jeff Bridges' son. And I really think that I mainly got that role because of how much I looked like Jeff Bridges' son. There was just, and Joanna Cassidy, not Joanna Cassidy, who played his wife. Why is her name slipping my mind? Joanna Cassidy played my mom in another movie. Maybe it'll come to me in a moment. But anyway, I looked so much like it. And then Christian Slater, the brother, and all that. It was a great family. And I don't know how my audition went. I can't even remember it. I was so absolutely nervous, gut-wrenchingly nervous for that audition, because even at 12 years old, I was well aware of who Francis Ford Coppola was. I was well aware of who Jeff Bridges was. I was well aware of what this film could do for me as a young actor. And I was just a ball of nerves. And I remember being at home, maybe, I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks later or whatever, however long it was. I just remember every day was just this nauseating feeling inside. And I came home from school one day and hit playback on our answering machine. My mom was still at work, and the agent said that I had gotten the job of Noble Tucker in the movie
Oh,
Tucker.
nice.
And I lost my mind. There was no one else around. I was the only one home. My sister wasn't back yet. And I was like, a hungry monkey in a cage, just jumping around, screaming, just on the furniture. And I don't think I've ever been that excited for a role since. But and then the experience of working on that movie was an incredible learning curve for me. It really, really took me from being a very novice and amateur actor who knew little, I mean, I fortunately my parents were in the industry when I grew up. My mom was a graphic designer for in the music business and in the theater business, and I'd been backstage at musicals and plays and concerts, and I knew the functions of what was going on behind the scenes. And my dad is a production designer. He was a set designer back in the day, and he was a set designer on the TV series V, for instance. That was one of his early jobs. And so I remember going on the set of V when I was a little kid, and being able to see that, okay, when you're inside of the tunnel for the spaceship, inside the corridors and everything, it's like, wow, this is super real. And then the doors open, you walk out and you look back behind it, and it's just all these boards and stuff, and they're all misshapen. They're just nailed wherever they can be nailed. And it's just like, this thing is slapped together. It's not even, if an engineer came in there and looked at it, they'd be like, hey, this isn't safe, guys. No one should be walking inside of this thing. You know what I mean? But when you're inside of it, you're like, it's perfect, But so I understood the dynamics of it, which did assist me in feeling comfortable on set. I was already comfortable on set because I'd already been on set before, even though I was a bystander. But by after the 3.5 or so months that I was on Tucker, I understood all the dynamics of it, because I was a very interested kid. I was very interested in what all of the different departments did. I was around Vittorio Storaro and his cinematography crew, and I'm like up there, right next to them near the camera, just watching what they're doing and stuff. And they're just like, yeah, scram beer, and over by the sound cart, I'm over, like hanging out over there, just like, oh, what is this doing? How does it, and just all the different things. And so by the time I finished that up, I was ready for all the things that came. And from there, it really took off. I did, unfortunately, I did the last season of Webster, which is kind of iconic, but it was a terrible experience as an actor. And then from there, I went on and did What's Alan Watching, the Eddie Murphy Productions TV special with Fran Drescher and Barbara Barry and Peter Michael Getz and young Pauly Shore, and of course Eddie Murphy and a bunch of other great actors. And I had the starring role in that. That was huge, to have a starring role in an Eddie Murphy production CBS show. It was supposed to go to series, but the complications led it to not. But and then from there went on to do I Know My First Name Is Steven, and about the kidnapping of Steven Stainer and his subsequent escape 7 years later when he was 14, and all the horrible experiences he went through, and his struggle to normalcy. But and I ended up getting an Emmy nomination for that. At 15 years old, up against Armand Assante and Danny Glover, and who else was I up against? Gosh, I can't even remember now. But it was just huge actors, and that was another thing, just like, wow, this is incredible. All I'm doing is just what I love to do. I really didn't care anything about the circumstance and pomp of it all. And in a way that didn't serve me well later on, because I wasn't engaged in the ceremony of Hollywood, in so much as I relied on always having a publicist and always being in the picks and pans and trying to get on TMZ and being at the red carpet events and doing this and that and all of that shuck and jive, that is to a degree necessary for a certain amount of popularity in the public's eye if you're longing for that, which does tend to help foster a successful career if you're talented and you're capable at all of that shucking and jiving. Artistically speaking, I grew up as a graffiti artist, in the hip hop world and all of that, and in that culture, and for me, yeah, skateboarding, graffiti art. I have to say it, tagging and all of that stuff. When I was a teenager, that was my world. That's what I wanted to do on my days off. I wanted to go hang out with my buddies and go to the graffiti yard and risk our lives in some gang infested neighborhood to immortalize a wall with our tag name. But and in a way, it shaped me artistically because it kept me grounded in a type of reality that I would have been disconnected from had I not had that as a huge passion in my life, and the friendships that I had during that, because these guys were real. These were real dudes. They weren't wearing all the costumes and the outfits and the photo shoots and all the things and they weren't blowing smoke. You know what I mean? In fact, the opposite was when I was in all those teen magazines and things like that. Their sisters would have the posters on the wall and I'd be in the posters and I'm all there with my hair just done in some way I would never wear it in real life. And, in some outfit that I would never wear in real life, doing some pose that I would never do in real life. And they would tear those pictures out and they'd show up at the graffiti yard and they'd be like, "Hey, homie." And I'd be like, hide that thing, dude. Come on, man. you know? And so in a way, as I got older, after Parker Lewis, especially, and all of that, when I felt like my identity was being stolen from me in terms of the public eye, the way that they want to use you in that sense, in the publicity machine. It doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room to be yourself. The interviews are pre-scripted. The outcome of the interviews are pre-scripted. Sometimes even the clothes you wear on some of these things are set up. Which can be nice if you get sponsored by a nice clothing company or something like that. It can be great, but it doesn't. But the point is that I just wasn't into that. I was more into the artistic side of things, and so after Parker Lewis, I kept working steadily. Did the Stand, Drop
Yeah,
Zone.
I was going to mention that the Stand is one of Stephen King has said that's one of his favorite. When they reissued it recently, he came out and said, "Look, this is one of my favorite things that they've ever done." As far as from his work. So yeah, and I watched it a few months ago. It stands the test of time. It really does. It's a great piece of
It
work.
does.
Yeah.
Mick Garris did a fantastic job directing that, and we had a lot of time, and we had just so many incredible creative people, and we were shooting in Utah in the mid '90s in Salt Lake City, and it was just so quiet. There was just nothing going on. You know what I mean? And it was perfect. We could get so much work done. And everybody was having a great time. There was so many people on that cast and crew. It was I was there for like 5 months, 6 months, working on that. It was really great. And during that time period at the end of Parker Lewis's, I kept studying in acting classes beyond the one that I initially told you about, and continued in them all throughout my career, and had stopped taking acting classes the second season of Parker Lewis because I was too busy. And after I wrapped Parker Lewis, I felt, like I was lost and really being swept up by the industry. And I realized I need to get into an acting class and remind myself again, why did I do this in the first place? I did it because it was fun to do. You know what I mean? And it was challenging, and artistically it was fulfilling. And I didn't need a camera around. I didn't need a paycheck for it. In fact, I needed to pay for it. You know what I mean? I had to pay for that experience. So am I willing to pay for that experience again? And I ended up studying at the American Repertory Company with Manu Tupou, who is a fantastic acting teacher, artistic director. I studied with him for 10 years. In fact, all the way up until when he passed away in 2005. And my son's middle name is named after him, Lucas Manu.
Oh, nice.
And his technique, the New Era acting technique, was just such a groundbreaking technique. It was actually very Buddhistic. It was almost like Eastern philosophy smashed into the art of acting, and it was really unique. And I just published a book on it recently called how to create a character for the stage or life. And it's based on it's an introduction to the new era acting technique and the philosophy behind it. You can get that on lulu.com. If you like, Googling my name, Corin Nemec, lulu.com. But and I also I published that book because I needed a cornerstone, because I'm going to start teaching as well soon. And I'm going to pick up where Manu left off and teach his technique to other people, because it's a magical technique. It's something that you can take into life, not just acting. But so being back on the stage brought me back to reality of what it what I'm in the industry for. And he also preached longevity. He also stressed for his students to learn other things that they like about the entertainment business. If you learn to write, learn to produce, learn to direct, learn to be a sound guy, learn to be a gaffer, learn to be a hair and makeup artist, learn to be a prop master, learn to be, go ahead, do all of that stuff, because you may not find success as an actor in this industry. But if you want to be in this industry, you may find success in other departments, so I branched out to myself and started writing scripts and got leaning more into producing and all of that. And the film that we were about to talk about, Deadly Justice, is one that I wrote and produced, and also I took the co-starring role in it and gave the lead role to Brian Krause, because it was just, the role was too right for him. I could have taken the role opposite Kelly Sullivan as the the lead male actor, and because she's great, and had that the fame and hey, look, I wrote, I produced this, and I'm starring in it, and I'm just like, that's too much. I had locations that I had to deal with. I had the accounting department I had to deal with. I had all of the other stuff going on behind the scenes that I had to deal with. So taking a smaller part in my own film was a much better idea for me.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, because I know you have a rich history in acting, straight out of high school, basically. Would you say that coming from being a teenage or child actor is difficult compared to getting into it, let's say, when you're, 20 or 22? Like, is there, because you see a lot of, and it maybe just be rumors, but you see a lot of stuff out there in the media saying that, child actors have it really rough and it's really hard to transition to an adult actor. Did you have difficulties?
Yeah, I have to say that I didn't necessarily know, and the reason for that was really quite strategic. When I had a lot of success before I graduated high school. I'd already had the Emmy nomination for I Know My First Name is Steven when I was 15. The Emmys were when I was 16. So, a couple of years before I even graduated, I got the Emmy nomination. So I knew that dramatically I had something that I could hold on to for getting future work. Look what I just did, So when Parker Lewis came about, every hiatus, when we would shut down, I would do a dramatic movie of the week, because I had a strong name value and all that. So the first hiatus I did for the very first time, which was an ensemble 1950s, coming of age story, great cast. Machen Amick was in that, and a bunch of other great people, and then the second hiatus after season 2, I did My Son Johnny with Rick Schroeder and Michelle Lee. Very dramatic, true story about two brothers that one's abusive, the other one is the abused, and he ends up killing his brother, and he gets off on the charges for, it was self-defense, this, that, all these things, and crazy, heavy dramatic stuff. Then went back on to season 3 of Parker Lewis, and after that I went and did the Life Force Experiment with Donald Sutherland, and that was another really heavy dramatic piece, kind of a sci-fi twist to it and stuff, and as an early sci-fi original, and so the doing that gave me the ability to not be pigeonholed as Parker Lewis. That's what my main concern was. I was like, if I just do Parker Lewis and I take hiatus off and I'm like, ooh, you know what I mean? I'm Parker Lewis, you know what I'm saying? Then I'm going to lose in the end, you know what I'm saying? And since Parker Lewis can't lose, I had to go and do really dramatic roles in those hiatuses. And so when Parker Lewis came to an end, when in the casting world, there was still a hangover from Parker Lewis in the casting world, but there was enough casting directors out there who had already cast me in dramatic roles and already knew my talents as a dramatic actor. And I was really, trying to lean further away from the comedic stuff as much as possible. And it wasn't, it was very short. It was probably within 6 to 8 months after Parker Lewis, the third season wrapped up, that I found myself, getting The Stand. And then right after The Stand, went on to Drop Zone. Then after Drop Zone, went on to Operation Dumbo Drop. And then, after that, went on, and did a number of other really big TV movies, Blackout, and then Brother's Keeper that John Badham also directed, who directed Drop Zone those years earlier. And so, and also not being afraid to audition, because there was a certain point after the third season of Parker Lewis that I had a little bit of an attitude about auditioning. Like, look at all this stuff I've done. They should just offer me this role. And I ended up losing a really, really big role because of that. Primal Fear was a role that I could have gotten. I had a very good chance of getting that lead role in that film. And I blew it because I had an ego about that I needed to pre-read instead of just going in for the directors and producers directly. And I screwed myself, and I learned a valuable lesson from that. And when I got into the acting classes, my artistic director, Manu, always said, listen, auditioning is just an opportunity for you to rehearse your craft, to practice what it is that you do for a living, if that's what it is you say you do. Because if you're walking around the world telling everybody you're an actor and you're not acting, then you're delusional. Because the only time that you can actually say that you're an actor is when you're acting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're whatever it is you're doing during that moment. You're a guy sitting at a coffee shop, having a coffee, dreaming about being an actor. You're not an actor. You're sitting there at a coffee shop. Don't tell people you're an actor. You're a guy who's acted. You know what I mean? And so that also really, really assisted me in longevity, because even for Drop Zone, the role was quite small. It was smaller than it turned out to be in the movie. But I was like, this is a big movie. It's Wesley Snipes, for God's sake. I want in on that. You get me that audition. I want to read for John Badham. And I went in there and I nailed the audition. I got the role. It was an improvisational audition because this character really had almost no dialogue. And they ended up creating a bigger role for that character, because of that. And it's a memorable character. Selkirk is a memorable character for Drop Zone for having not been a very significant part of the overall storyline. And so that was a big aspect of it. It's just not being afraid to audition, continuing to audition all the way up to the 2000s, then getting Stargate, in 2003. That was, that really helped get me back into a certain category of, series regular, all of that. It was short-lived, but I took advantage of it because I went on and did a bunch of sci-fi original movies and all of that. Now, some people might go, oh yeah, B movies, this, again, you can hold out as much as you want and go for all the A-list stuff and play all of that game. But my job is to be an actor. And I had an opportunity to also produce these films. And that was what, I had leverage, because having been on Stargate gave me I was on the checklist for sci-fi, for their sci-fi original movies. So if I was starring in it, sci-fi is going to buy it. So then I could go to producers. We can say, hey, we'll attach me to this script. Let's fix the script up, get a cast around it, and then we'll go and shoot this. We'll sell it to sci-fi. You know what I mean? And so I got to do a bunch of those, and then went on to do the same kind of thing with the same basic group of producers and directors with Lifetime channel movies and all of that. And that's where I've had the longevity is writing, producing, acting, not a lot of directing. It's because I'd rather just direct if I'm going to direct and not be in it. And always hustling up the relationships. Me and David Faustino started a production company together. In the 2000s, we did a bunch of movies. Not a bunch. We did 4 or 5 movies together. We have another movie coming out soon. Where we're like the comedic duo, and we did our own web series for Sony Television called Starving that was on Crackle. Short-lived. It was 12 episodes of just absolute hilarity with Sam Cass from a writer-producer from Seinfeld, and just some really epic stuff. And it's been an incredible, career so far. And then coming up with Deadly Justice, which again, I had the privilege of being able to write and produce and act in. That'll be coming out April 16th. It's a murder mystery, kind of a thriller, and I think people will enjoy that. A bit of a whodunit, and that'll be on April 16th on Voodoo Fandango. So that you can go and check that out there.
Yeah, I
But
actually
then,
had the privilege of watching that already, and I'll tell you what, Brian Krause does an incredible job in that movie.
yeah, you couldn't. He was perfect for it. There's nobody else who could have played that character.
Yeah, that was. I mean, and yeah, you just watch that develop, and you're like, holy cow! Yeah, he did great. I've always been a fan of his and Charmed and stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, he's wonderful, and so I'm excited about that movie coming out. And then I have a number of other projects at the Sunscreen Film Festival down here in Florida. I've got 4 films that are
Ooh.
showing there. One is I Feel Fine, which is a very heavy drama about a teen who's obsessed with this idea of suicide, has no faith in something greater, or it's going to be a tough watch. It's a subject that should be addressed, and it's a very well done film by Haley and Austin Spicer, the writer producers who put it together. And then Place of Bones, which is a thriller that takes place in 1876. I'm starring opposite Heather Graham, and Tom Hopper is in that, and it's a wonderful thriller, very dark, very moody. One of the cinematographers from Quentin Tarantino's films shot it, so it looks magical. That'll be playing there. A TV pilot that's available on YouTube. Anybody can go look it up on Corin Nemec TV on YouTube. It's called Blackwater Blues, that Jason London, fellow actor and friend of mine, created together and shot a short film version of basically a pilot presentation, a treatment to kind of a version of a TV series that we created together. And it plays really well. That's playing in the short film category. Blackwater Blues, about 2 brothers who live down on the Gulf Coast, and their mother had disappeared many years before, and they never knew what happened. And both of them did a lot of time because they went on a rampage trying to find out what happened to their mother. And now out of jail and trying to turn over a new leaf, their grandfather dies and leaves them a list of clues to their mother's disappearance. So it's like these two, it's like redneck detectives, you know what I mean? It's sort of like like Gumshoe Diaries of the hillbillies of the South, and so that it's a very, very cool project. I'm happy about that. And then there's a kind of an 80s throwback action movie called Savage that I play the comedic relief in, that will be out playing there as well. But besides that, I mean, I got a bunch of other films that are coming out. It's really nuts. I mean, there's probably 4, maybe 5 other films that I haven't even mentioned yet that are all down the road, including one called Joe Baby with Deacon Lockman and Harvey Keitel and Ron Perlman. So yeah, there's some good stuff. There's some tasty stuff out there. I'm just waiting for it all to hit like dominoes, and let's get the party started.
I mean, that's everything that you said so far sounds amazing. And one thing that I'm glad that you did do is that you didn't stick to a typecasted role, which you were afraid of after Parker Lewis Can't Lose, but you went out there and you proved that you could do other things, and that led you to this really big career in a sense that it doesn't, like what you said, you're an actor and your job is to act. So it doesn't matter really if it's always A-list movies or if it's B-list movies. The point is you're acting, that's your job. And while you're doing that, you're meeting people. So it doesn't, to me, I hear a lot of actors say about working on A-list projects and that's a priority. But, one thing about working on other projects too is that if you work on a B-list movie, you never know it's going to become a cult classic. And then if it becomes a cult classic, everybody's going to know you anyway from the B-list movie. And then you meet so many amazing actors and producers and directors and cinematographers that could...
You nailed it right there. Yeah, well, you nailed it. Is you don't know this might be some little, B movie, $250,000 slasher film shot on one location, and you're like, what do I do with this? But you don't know what that producer is going to do one day, what that director is going to become one day. You know what I mean? What the distribution company may think of you, or what you don't know any of that other stuff. And if you go in there with any kind of attitude about it, any kind of chip on your shoulder, anything like that, if you're not going in there with nothing but 100% focus on delivering whatever your character's objectives are to that screen, then you're not there for the right reasons. And so I think it's always important. Certainly there has to be integrity. You can't just sell yourself out. I mean, I have turned down plenty of jobs over the years that I was like a little suspect on. I'm like, and there's other ones that I've taken where I was a little suspect on, but was like, you know what? I can see something in this script. I like what this director is saying. Let's just do this. And they've turned out to be really fun, cool projects that maybe not many people ever saw, but I enjoyed it, and I got to practice my craft, and I got to be on set, and I got to, participate in what it is I do for a living. I mean, if I'm a bricklayer and I'm running around town telling everybody I'm a bricklayer and I'm the best bricklayer there is, but yet nobody's seen one building that I've laid bricks on, then what kind of bricklayer am I? You know what I mean? You got to go lay some bricks.
Well, that's the old trope. Like, when I've been to LA and I've eaten in LA restaurants, and I've met a lot of actors. They were the ones bringing me my soup, everybody out there is an actor, but like you said, the only ones are the working actors are the ones that are actually getting jobs, And the other thing I wanted to mention, you talked about like reading for scripts that there were times you didn't feel you had to do it, but how many times you hear this story about, I went in and read for this part, I didn't get it, but they had another part for me, or the casting director did something 6 months later and he said, hey, you're perfect for this part, come and check this out. So
yeah, absolutely. That's happened numerous times over these numerous decades that I've been in this. There certainly has been those types of coincidence that has been fortuitous.
Yep. So, yep. And then, but yeah, like I said, I watched Deadly Justice. I liked it. I think especially the three leads, and I can say, even though you weren't a lead, you were kind of support. I consider you one of the three leads.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job. You really,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so hopefully everybody out there on the interwebs here watching this will tune in and check out Deadly Justice on April 16th and help us make the investors their money back.
Yeah, always a good thing. Yes.
Well, one thing I do want to thank you for, Corin, is the fact that I know that in a sense the industry is kind of like in a weird place right now, right? With the movie theaters and which movies they put out in the theaters. And I see that a lot of great films, a lot of great directors, producers, writers are putting their films, sometimes on different services because they can't get it distributed. So the people out there that are watching this, I hope you do check out Deadly Justice and everything else that Corin has mentioned when it comes out, because a great movie can end up anywhere and it still can be a great movie. Exactly.
Love it. And guys, man, thanks so much for a wonderful chat. We'll do it again when I find out more about some of these other projects, where they're going to land, when they're going to come out, and how people can see them. We'll follow up with each other.